Welcome to the Becoming a Streamer podcast by Pipeline, where we learn more about streamer stories and how they got to where they are at today. I am your host, co-founder of Pipeline, Stone Mountain 64, and today we are joined by none other than Viss, full-time content creator, part of the org TeamSoloMid, aka TSM. He started back in 2015 and is one of the all-time legendary Battle Royale players. He started really turning heads when he started climbing the leaderboards in PUBG, where he has, alone in that game, over 7,000 hours of playtime. He's got to be one of the most hardworking guys that I have ever met, and I encourage you to check him out over at twitch.tv/TSM_Viss. Without further ado, though, take notes and enjoy the interview. Well, welcome. Huge thanks for joining and coming on, sharing a bit of your story today, especially about streaming and everything that's going on with it. Really appreciate you taking some time, Viss.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for having me on, and I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, dude. Before we get too deep, I want to kind of get like a picture kind of where you're at with everything right now, especially if people don't know who you are or whatever. Like, where are you streaming? Where's your follower count at? Like, what kind of games are you playing? Like, where are you at within content and streaming right now?
My name's Viss. I go by TSMViss on Twitch. That's with an underscore. So I'm a streamer, a content creator for TSM. Currently on Twitch, I got about 700 and just north of 720,000 followers. Across my time playing on Twitch, I've been, mainly playing a lot of Battle Royale games. And right now I'm playing a lot of Apex Legends. Still been sticking with Apex, even though content, might not be as much out there right now. I've been playing still a ton of Apex. That's really encompassed like the vast majority of this year. There's been other games sprinkled in there as well. And I think that covers about everything that.
Yeah. Are you creating content on YouTube as well? Like, are you putting stuff up on Twitter? Cause I've seen a lot of your stuff on Instagram too, for sure. Like,
yeah. So, I do make some posts on Instagram. I used to put up more clips. I've kind of been treating Instagram more of like an Instagram recently. I used to throw up a ton of clips. I also do have a YouTube channel, Viss on YouTube. I'm closing in on about getting up there. The YouTube's never been as good for me. I've been like closing in on 75,000 subs now, which isn't bad. Getting up there, man.
Dude, it's solid.
Like 100,000 at some point.
Yeah, it looks like your Apex stuff has been doing well on it. So that's super cool. So I'm curious then, okay, tell us a bit about, yourself then. Like, where did you come from? Like, before you're creating content, was this like a journey that you're like planning on going on? Like, do you have background in like creating content or anything along those lines?
Yeah. So, when getting into content creation for me was a little bit interesting. It was never something that I had goals early on from like younger age of being a content creator. Like the first time I ever even thought about that stuff, I was probably around like when Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was out and about, watching videos of like CNanners and Chris Smoove and like Hutch, those guys early on. Like that's the very first time where I started realizing like, hey man, these guys play video games and people watch them and they make a living doing this. And I thought that was really amazing. But really, I mean, the vast majority of like growing up, I always wanted to play football. Like that was my big thing. I was always into sports and everything. And like gaming was a side hobby for the most part. Played sports all the way up until my final year of high school. Was really into football and really loved it. But I kind of lost my passion for it at my final season, my senior year. And after that, like I didn't really know what it was that I wanted to do. So, I went off to college, did the college thing. Like I always do well in school, but college just wasn't really something that, I enjoyed. And so I went to college for about 2 years and I left college after that. I was working at the time before while going to college and, I left, I got a new job at a Costco and, my family kind of went on like hard times around that time. And I was spending more time. It was like basically working and, I kept up with the gym after football and sports and was spending a lot of time doing that. And then the rest of my time I was spending really watching Twitch And that's the point where like really it started, like I started getting a decent idea of that this might be something that I want to try or I want to do. And I was watching Kill Carnage, Eat Me JP, and Ezekiel _ III at the time. And they had just barely started a show, Drop Frames. And me watching that show in the early days was kind of the thing that inspired me to actually give streaming a try and to start, producing my own content.
Dude, that's all. And so you were watching some stuff on YouTube before, like, were you just kind of seeing some of the content that was out there and kind of involved with it? And then it was like you started watching Twitch and that was kind of more of a connection for you. And that's what got you more into actually wanting to get into it. Like what made you choose Twitch as the platform to get going on?
So to be honest, I actually did when I was younger. I made like a few YouTube videos actually.
Are any of them still up?
I still have one.
I'm gonna search them up.
Saved on my channel. But I was younger. I had like a different gamer tag at the time. My gamer tag was DZ Twix. So we had like a clan of all my buddies and my friends, right? And we had our clan tag was DZ. Don't ask me why. And we all went by like different like candy names, and I was Twix, bro. And I actually do have a video up there, and I put it on my main channel to save it. It's a video I've even showed my viewers sometimes. It's kind of hilarious, but I was young at the time. I was in like junior high, and I threw it up there just messing around. It's an interesting commentary to say the least. I was just trying to, make my friends laugh when I sent them the video. But I kind of stopped after that. And yeah, I don't know. I just didn't really think about producing content. But once I started getting on Twitch, I was really looking for something that I could put like a lot of effort and time into and try to build something. And I don't know, when I found Twitch, something just resonated with me. And I realized like, man, this is the thing I really want to try to do. And yeah, that it was just through watching them and seeing the communities that they had built, JP, Co, and Zeke, it made me want to try to do something the same.
Yeah. And then, so, I mean, how long ago did you give it your first try?
So I started streaming on Twitch. It's about, I think, a little over 4.5 years. I started in May 2015. So it's been a decent while now.
And then when you started that, was it like you went in straight with like a strategy of where you wanted to go with it? Or was it just like, hey, I'm just going to start this thing up, see what happens? Like, did you get...
So yeah, when I started off, I did have like a plan. Like I started making a plan because the thing was at the time I wasn't able to stream. We didn't have like an internet connection or any of these things. We had to like move into a house to get internet and whatnot. But I kind of did have a plan from watching like their podcasts like early on and Drop Frames and whatnot, and like listening to some different advice. I looked up these different things. I kind of had made like a plan of what I was going to try to do. I knew that when I first started off playing that I wanted to play Arma 3 BR. That's like, I started off with Battle Royale from the very beginning, the original Arma mod. And I knew that that was like a game that I wanted to try to build my channel up in. I also I guess I had like a little bit of strategy. I looked at different games on Twitch, like what was possible for people to grow in. I knew that coming in from a brand new channel, that if you just jump into a giant game, it's going to be very hard to grow a channel and grow a community. So I kind of realized that. And I knew that Arma 3 BR would be a good game, but better than that, it was the fact that I knew that I had a lot of love for that game as well. And then a thing that I did from the very beginning, I set a challenge for myself that I was going to stream every single day for a year. So I set a 365-day challenge, and I was still working at the time and everything. But I set a goal that, I'm going to stream every single day. And I knew that putting in all that time and whatnot, I was going to learn a lot from that. And there was also going to be a lot of opportunities and different things that probably came about from putting all that time in. So that was something early on that I did come in with.
I love that challenge, but I feel like that must have been insanely difficult while you're working, while you're like, I mean, that's holidays. That's freaking everything. That's everything, yeah. Right? Like, I mean, like how many hours did you have a day where it was like, oh, I'm just going to do like a 30-minute stream today? Or was it like, what was that like doing that?
What really happened was like, once I first started on Twitch, from the very first few days in, and I realized like, this is something I really enjoy and something I really want to do. and it made me really want to put in even more time and like more effort. And so during that time, those 365 days, I think that maybe only on like a few holidays did I ever do less than like 3 hours in a day. I tried to always do like minimum 5, and it was crazy because I was working at the time and I was working overtime, but I was just putting all my spare hours in the day into that. Like I didn't go out with like friend, like it was kind of crazy, man, to be honest. Like I cut off a lot of different things in my life, and I made it so that I could focus on this thing to have this spare time. But at the same time, I really enjoyed it was the thing. And I think that's made it a lot easier for me to do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I'm curious, like, were you playing a bunch before you got, like, was Arma a game that you were already playing before you got into to playing that? Like,
so what happened was, like I had said, we were in a situation where I didn't really have internet, right? So
right.
we moved into this house, and we set up internet within like the first few days, and this was actually the first time I even started playing shooters on PC. I had played a little bit of PC. Well, I played some PC games before, League of Legends, WoW, RuneScape, right? But the very first time I started playing PC shooters was with Arma 3 BR. And basically what I did, I downloaded Arma. I started playing, I think I played like 5 Battle Royale games like the night before, as soon as we got internet set up. And then it was like literally the next day I'm going to start streaming. So I didn't have a ton of practice, to be honest.
That's pretty incredible. So I mean, that was kind of your journey getting good at it then. I remember the first time that I really saw you was PUBG. Like I remember every time I went there, your win counter was just going up and up and up because you put it in your title of how many wins that you had on that thing, which is we'll get to that too, I guess. But like, okay, I'm just curious though. Like at the end of your 365-day challenge, what did you do after that? Was it like, okay, we're doing another challenge of that? Like, was there like a celebration at the end? Like,
so it was a celebration because what happened was during that time, right? Like nowadays with Twitch, right? The affiliate program and everything, like the road to partnership, that didn't exist back when I had first started up. So it was about like 10 months in where I actually got to the point where I got partnered on Twitch. And so like that was obviously a big celebration in itself.
Yeah.
And then after we hit 365 days, like it was a celebration. And then I actually continued for a couple more days after that before I took a day off. And then, what happened after that was like I decided I was going to take 1 day off a week. And that lasted for about maybe like 5-6 weeks. And then I was like, we're going to start another challenge. And we started another challenge, started over from day one. And we went and did a 550-day challenge. But that was the last challenge I've ever done.
you went into it saying 550 days was the challenge? Or did you just try and streak it out for as long as you...
No, what happened was I said, we're going to do another year. And then we did a year. And then I was like, let's keep going and see what we can get to.
Oh my gosh.
And it ended up being that after 550 days, I was like, yeah, I think this is the point where we stop.
And so was it mostly playing Arma at that time? Or like, did you switch over? Did you play H1Z1? Like, what was your transition from that like?
Okay, so it was kind of interesting in the early days because like Arma wasn't that big of a community. Saying that, like there was times where I think even like Summit would jump over and play like Arma 3 BR and like Lyric, and that would bring some people over, but the community was never really that big, never more than like, man, like a few thousand, maybe got up to like at the most like its peak for a very short time, like 10,000 people playing. And that was rare. Like that wasn't a big thing. So yeah, what happened was like Arma numbers started to like dwindle down after a certain amount of time. People went on to play their games. It was H1Z1 mainly. So I did start playing some H1. That I didn't honestly, like my channel didn't do that well with H1Z1 or Arma. Like at the time, all the way up to this point, Arma 3, H1Z1, I don't think I had really ever gotten over like 200 people watching me at once. And I never even got to the point of like having over 100 people watch me until I was probably about like 7 months in to streaming. And it was about maybe, I know you had mentioned PUBG. PUBG was about 2 years after I started. And that's like when my really big break was with PUBG. But I did play Arma 3. I went into H1Z1. I was always trying to get better and like learn new tactics, everything I could about Battle Royale. I've always tried to approach it with like a tactical mindset, and which might be might sound interesting to people now because I think a lot of people know me for like running and gunning in Apex.
Sure.
But obviously, from starting off on PC with Arma 3, like I wasn't that good. Like when it comes to my aim and everything, that's something I had to develop over time. So I started off realizing I have to bring a lot of strategy into this if I'm actually going to do well.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was when I first started playing battle royales. Is just pure strategy, especially like you say that was the first computer game that you were really getting into, learning the aim and everything along those lines. I definitely understand what you're saying there. So you're saying like your first big break was in PUBG then. Like, did you have any like big moments that helped like keep you going earlier on in Arma or any things like that too? Or was it like just PUBG is when you started to get some big traction?
So the like early on, the best thing was just like, it's always been about having the love like of video games and sharing that with other people. When I stream, it reminds me of like, when you were a kid playing with your best friends, you're passing the controller around, you're talking to different people. So like that was the thing that kept me going early on, was like seeing the growth of the channel and like how fun I was having with it. So, the channel was always like slightly growing. We were always getting slightly better. There was times where it dipped some, and like obviously the first time you ever have like a channel dip, I feel like as a streamer, those are like scary moments. But
Sure.
we made it through those, and there was some cool stuff. Like Arma 3 did battle royale tournaments, and the community was really awesome. And there was obviously having fun with different friends and through streaming,
Sure.
riding in H1Z1 and whatnot. But yeah, the really big break for me came when PUBG, and it was the funny thing with PUBG, and you might know this. I don't know if you tested the alpha of PUBG, like the early beta days.
I did the beta, like at the very end of the beta is when I
Uh-huh.
first played it.
So like the early alpha days were terrible, man. It was nuts. Like the game is, if you look in an alpha video of PUBG compared to nowadays, you would not even think it's
Oh
the same
yeah.
game. People like when we first played that, all the Arma community was like, man, we're really hoping this is going to be an awesome game. It's going to be the first like standalone battle royale that we're going to really like. And like the first time a lot of us played it, we're like, oh my God, dude, this is not good. We like my heart was crushed the first time I played it, man. But I stuck with it, and the game obviously started getting better and better over time. And
So was that
it
like
eventually developed into something better.
did you hard transition over to that and just be like, all right, I'm gonna start figuring this game out, like even in the alpha stage, or did you just kind of mix between them until it was like, oh wow, this is in beta now, this is starting to look good, now it's starting to come out, like I'm gonna be like an early, pound in PUBG, I'm gonna get the best at it.
So what happened was like Arma was not doing that well, right? Like the thing with
Sure.
Arma 3 is it had tons of bugs. Whenever they would release a new patch, the modders would have to fix so many different things that they would end up breaking because of this new patch from the actual like dev team. The mod team, the mod devs would have to fix everything. But
Oh
so
yeah.
it was something where it was like people were getting fed up with it. I was kind of getting fed up with Arma after a while. Still love the community, absolutely, but it was one of those things where I kind of realized early on that like, hey man, this could be a big opportunity. I've gotten to play this game. I've developed my skills through Arma, and it's a very similar battle royale. And I realized very early on, like when this game was coming out, that if it was going to do well, that this was a big opportunity for me and a big chance where I could make something big happen for my channel.
Dude,
And
that's
yeah,
I mean that's awesome that you're seeing the opportunity, you're kind of seeing that unfold. And then like what was the trigger, I guess? Like was it, at least I know I saw you from you putting your title of how many wins, and you just like kept hammering out wins, and I was just like, that's what I was trying to figure out, even to like, how do I get my first second win in this game? Like, was that something
yeah,
that helped you out on that? Like what do you, or maybe you don't even know the exact thing from it.
No, I think that was definitely a thing that helped. And I did that also in Arma. And the reason I actually did that originally was just to track my wins like myself. It wasn't even something that I thought about like trying to show it off to other people. It was like my viewers like, you should track your wins because there's no way to track your wins in Arma
Yeah.
back then. And there was no way to track your wins early on in PUBG either.
Yeah.
So it was like, I'm just going to track my wins, my title. And then after like a while of tracking my wins and the wins started going up, people started seeing that and realized like, hey, this guy's obviously winning a lot of games. Maybe I should check him out. So it wasn't something that I initially thought of, but it did end up helping. But the biggest break for me when it came to PUBG was this. Like I said, I developed my skills in like Arma, and I realized how to play Battle Royale, different movements, like how people usually played the circle, these different things. And so early on, I did really well. And it was actually Halifax. I think, you
Yeah.
obviously of Halifax. And me and him had decided early on that we were going to grind the leaderboards when they released for PUBG and try to make it to the top. And so we just decided to start grinding duos. And it just so happened that that's what the vast majority of other people on Twitch were deciding to do as well, was to grind duos, right? And so I know that Lyric was grinding with it with his teammate. I think it was maybe like Lyric and Shorty. And then Summit was grinding as well. It was like Summit and Sacriel early on, and then Summit and Vinegar. And then also Summit and Smack. But there was so many streamers that were grinding for those top spots in duos. And what ended up happening was me and Hallie grinded our way up and got to those number one spots. And like a lot of those streamers stayed on early the first day and like got to the top. And me and Hallie hopped on a lot the second day and grinded all the way and took all those spots. So people are like, who the heck is this Viss guy? Who's Halifax? And so that was like, honestly, the biggest catalyst was all these people seeing us get to the top, and all the other streamers would obviously be like, oh, Viss came from Arma 3. Because a lot of them did know about me because I did really well in Arma 3 BR.
That's all. And then it kind of just helps. I mean, you have more backstory there. It's just obviously a lot more to talk about too, dude. That's awesome. And then, so I'm curious, like, you weren't with TSM at that time then, right? TeamSoloMid, incredible organization. Like, how did that come about then? How is Halifax there? He's with them as well, right?
Yeah, Hallie is with him. Hallie ended up getting signed up with them. It was like maybe like after a year. They wanted to pick up more content creators.
Sure.
But what ended up happening was that like what I just said with like the duos and everything, that was like a huge catalyst for my channel. I had gone from like the most people that I had ever had watching me at one point was like 500 after Arma BR itself had hosted my channel after a tournament that we had played, to having like, it's the highest my channel's ever peaked at. Actually, it was like 23,000 people, which was just flipping absolutely absurd. And what happened was, obviously over time that number's not going to stay the same, right? But it went down, and my channel eventually leveled out. There was quite a few people watching me. I had like maintained that number one spot in duos, and also got to the number one spot in solos on the leaderboard as well. And it was around that time that TSM was looking to pick up content creators and professional players in PUBG to start their first team. And they were actually the first esports org to sign a team. There was other esports orgs at the time that were interested in like trying to pick up players, see who they wanted to pick up.
Yeah.
So it was maybe like after about a month in to PUBG, that they had ended up reaching out to me. One, because, channel was doing well, and obviously because I was doing really well in the game as well.
And was that to be like, were you competing with them, or was that like as a content creator, or is it kind of a mix of both?
So it was really weird at the time. It was like how we approached it was, we're going to sign you as a content creator.
Sure.
But also there's a possibility that in the future, this game could have esports. And if it does, we want to have a team. So we're going to sign you as well as a professional player. If and when esports actually comes around, or tournaments come around, that you will be a professional player for us. And so you may have to travel, do these different things. So it was really interesting early on, because we had joined so early, and like no one really knew where Battle Royale esports were going to go, if it was actually going to be a thing.
Right.
So it was kind of interesting early on.
I'm curious, like, that must have been a lot of time, obviously, to get to climb the leaderboard, to get to that skill level, to keep grinding wins and everything. Like, at what point did you transition to, you left your other job and just was like, was it in that first year when you hit partnered? Like, when did that point come to where you just fully dedicated to all this?
Yeah. So that came actually earlier on. The thing is I had been working a ton, and I continued working like all the time while I had first started streaming, and I was trying to save as much money as I possibly could. And another big thing that I did at the time, I made sure that all my expenses were super low. Like, I was living well within my means, not spending any extra money on anything that I didn't need. And I was still living at home too. Sure. So I was able to like cut down all of that, and I was able to save up enough money over time that it was about after 8 months in, I had realized like, my channel's getting up to the point of like, I'm getting to 100 viewers. It's the channel's continuing to grow. Also at the time, what happened was Twitch had started being a little bit more lenient about who they were partnering, because even before I started, it was like, man, you have to get a 500 people average like viewership at a time to even be considered. Even then, sometimes people got turned down. But it was right around that time, about 8 months, where they started partnering other channels that were just big in certain communities, right? And my channel was doing really well in Arma 3BR. So I realized it was an opportunity and a chance. So I left my job after about 8 months that I started streaming. And because I had worked up like enough savings, and because I realized if there's ever a point where I could go for partnership and start putting in more and more hours, this could be that time. So I left, and I put the vast majority of those hours that I was working into streaming and developing more things for the stream.
What was your like day like? Because if you're streaming 4 hours after you're working full time and overtime, and I mean, were you still going to the gym at that point as well? Like while you're working, like what was that, I guess, like schedule like for you?
Yeah, it was, so originally what ended up happening was I would stream after work. But I would wake up, it was around like probably 7, 8 a.m. I have to be in the work by like, I don't know. It was right around like 9, and I'd work like a full day shift, and then I'd come home and I'd stream like at night.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would go to bed, wake up, and some days I would lift. I'd be lifting in the middle of the day, and I was big into lifting before. There's actually like a clip I had put up on my Instagram of me like beforehand. I was into powerlifting. I was obviously into sports, and you can see like over time, if you don't use it, you lose it type of thing, where like I stopped putting as much time into the gym and everything, because it was literally work, like maybe a gym in between, and then stream, and then like repeat. And I did that honestly for the first year, but I worked the overtime hours probably for about the first 3-4 months that I started streaming. Went to full time for about another 3 hours, or went to full time for about another 3 months after that. And then what ended up happening was I went to a part-time shift where I worked in the mornings I would wake up at 4:30 to have to be in by 5, and then I'd be done by 10. And so I'd wake up 4:30, go in 5, be done by 10, get off, go and try to lift maybe for like an hour, and then I would start streaming, and I'd put the rest of the time in the day streaming, usually stay on like super late, not get enough sleep, and then wake up, have to go to bed and wake up and do it again.
Yeah.
Now it was obviously on my days on, but my work would call me in. They'd be like, hey man, can you come and work another shift this morning? I'd be like, yeah, because I realized that if I was saving more money, that was going to be actually leading me closer to the goal of the point where I could leave that job and go full-time streaming.
Dude, that is some dedicated work ethic. That is incredible, man. So then, okay, you go forward. You're obviously playing a ton of Apex now. That's what a lot of 2019 has been. But you're also still full time. Like, but what's your average day now like?
Okay, so yeah, average day now is a little bit different. Like we kind of just talked about, like it was a huge grind, like you said, those early days. And I mean, even after that, the thing was, is like I was putting in so much time trying to like produce content in PUBG, and also like practice, and we'd be traveling for LANs and different things. So like all of that, it was a ton of work. The crazy thing is like I worked up to about like, I got close to like almost 7,000 hours in PUBG. And so that's like more hours now still than most of the people that still play that game.
I played that game a lot
all the time.
I think I maybe have 1,700, 7K hours. That is insane.
So there was a time that this year, it really was like a little bit after Apex, where I was like, man, it's time I need to back off like all these hours, because it honestly, I'm kind of like pride myself on being like a grinder. I can just keep grinding through things for a long time. But man, even I got like my breaking points, and there's been points this year like I got to pull back. And so an average day for me, like wake up, usually in the morning, like I do a little bit of like walking, helps me wake up for the day, have breakfast. And then there's like a time before I stream, a little bit of time before I stream where, I do different things. Maybe I have to get something done for the stream. Like recently I've been working on some like new emotes and different things. Or maybe it'll be like a little bit of a time where I'll watch like some YouTube or something and check out some other channels. And then I'll start streaming. And right now I'm doing about like 6-7 hours of streaming. So I usually start my stream around like 8 or 9. And that means I'll get done usually around like somewhere in between 2 and 4, depending on how long I go. And then typically after I get done, I'll have a little bit of a lunch. I'll go and hit the gym. I'm at the gym for probably like about an hour and a half, but there's also the travel time
Sure.
from there and back. And I'll get back, usually have some dinner. And then the time after dinner, I'm either going to, most of the time, I'm trying to like spend that as like me time, doing different things, like spending time with the family, going to hang out with friends. But there are sometimes, obviously, I got to do some like stuff for YouTube, maybe edit something up. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like, at least, and whenever I talk to people, it's like there's always more stuff that you can do and can be doing. I mean, obviously,
you're absolutely right.
You know that from early on, streaming literally every single day. But I think that's incredible, and that's something that I definitely admire. And I try and even have been trying to shape myself more around, even seeing you like at the gym and you posting a lot of stuff about that, just like working on your own mental health and everything. It's it's really powerful.
That's a huge thing, man. Like when it comes to streaming, like your own, like making sure like your mental health's good, because I mean, if you're not in good like mental health, you're not happy, you're not having fun, then like you're not gonna be able to have fun with your community. You're not gonna be able to produce as good of content. So you got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well, right? Because if you don't, it brings down everything in your life. You gotta make sure that you're good on that.
Yeah, I mean, you're the asset. You're the irreplaceable part of the whole formula of
absolutely
of everything going on. Cool. So I mean, like, I'm curious then, like, what would you say? Maybe you have an answer for it, maybe you don't. Like, what do you think is one of the most vital skills that you have as a creator, as you've been doing all of this stuff?
Ooh, okay. I think the most vital skill that I have as a creator,
or maybe it's a combination of things, or obviously you've been a grinder, you've got a passion for what you're doing, you've been incredibly dedicated, not missing a day on things. Like, I don't know if anything stands out in particular of like, this is something that has helped me differentiate from whatever else is going on.
I think that big thing is it's been really like a focus on my work ethic, and really like having a focus every day of like, how can I make myself better as a streamer, or what's different content that I could produce? Like, what's something else that I could change with how I'm doing? And like paying attention, also trying to like pay attention to like my mood and like different things of like that I do, and like how that affects my community and different things. I don't know, maybe being like self-aware has helped me a ton as a content creator. It would either be that, or like just literally the dedication. Like, I'm able to grind through things and keep going once I have like a goal in mind.
I like it, man. And I mean, any parting thoughts or any advice you'd want to give to other creators out there who are trying to start now, or maybe a year in, or trying to kind of find their way on their journey, or any advice that you give out, when you're streaming or anything?
Yeah, like here's the big thing whenever it comes to advice, or people ask me for advice.
Yeah.
And like, there's so many different like tip videos and everything already out there, right? There's like been there's amazing streamers, and they've got like tip videos out on YouTube. They can give you all these tips, all these different things that you can do and try. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing is kind of a little bit like what I was talking about, is keep developing yourself and getting better, and realize that like, if this is going to be a thing that you make happen, and it depends on what your goals are, you got to realize that like, even if you're averaging like 100 viewers on Twitch, right? Like, that's a top, like what, 2%, 3% channel across the whole entire platform.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be willing and able to put in like the top 2-3% of work ethic, top 2-3% of creativity, like skill, charisma, whatever it is that's going to like separate you, make you different. If you're wanting to make it to that, even just that point, it's like, you've got to have that top 2-3%. And I think you can develop that. I think different people have a lot of different things that they can bring to streaming and use to help grow a channel. But I think what it comes down to at the end of the day is just like, you got to find a way to make it happen. You got to find a way to make it work. You can have all the tips and everything that you want in the world, but just because you got those tips, that's not going to make you actually do the work and be able to put the time in. And the biggest thing overall that I think is a huge tip that it's easy for us to kind of get confused on, is that, man, have fun and try to make it so that other people are having fun as well. share that experience with gaming with other people, because at the end of the day, that's going to be the thing that keeps you going. If you get into this for the wrong reasons, if you get into this for the money or the fame or any of that, like, you're going to quit. You're going to quit because you won't have that grind or that passion, and you're not going to see those results, and it's going to stop you from actually making it. Get into it because you love it and because you enjoy doing what you're doing when it comes to streaming, gaming, and sharing that with other people. And I think that is the biggest thing, because even if you don't make it, hey man, you're still having fun, which is an absolutely awesome thing.
Dude, I absolutely love that. You've definitely, I feel like you've said that before. That was that was awesome, dude. That was awesome. And I definitely see that in what you're doing too. Like, you are building yourself up every day in more ways than even just your stream. Obviously, like, lifting everything else that you're doing too. That's awesome, man. So where can people find you if they want to check you out, if they want to see some more of your stuff? Give me your plug.
Absolutely. So TSM_Viss on Twitch, main streaming platform. That's where you can find me the most. Live every day around 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Mountain Time. Also, you can follow me on Instagram, also TSM_Viss. YouTube is just Viss, and Twitter is at TSMViss. I kind of got to get all those the same at some point, right? So
yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, dude, I love it. Thank you so much for joining. If you guys want to listen to more podcasts from us, you can find it at pipeline.gg. Dude, thank you so much again, and see you out there streaming.
Yo, thanks for having me, man. It was a great time. Appreciate it.